The wind howled through the empty expanse of the highway, flinging snowflakes against Claire's windshield like tiny daggers. Her fingers gripped the steering wheel tightly as her old sedan shuddered with each gust of wind. She glanced at the clock on the dashboard. 11:47 p.m. The swirling snow made it hard to see more than a few feet ahead, and the lonely stretch of road stretched endlessly into the void. She hadn't passed another car in over an hour. The radio crackled with static, offering no comfort. Claire reached to turn it off when she saw it. A figure standing on the side of the road, illuminated by her dim headlights. A man, bundled in a thin jacket, clutching a small duffel bag. His thumb was out, trembling slightly in the cold. Her heart raced. Every instinct told her to keep driving. It was freezing, though. No one could survive long in this storm. She hesitated, glancing at her phone on the passenger seat. No signal. If she didn't stop, he could freeze to death out here. She slowed the car, tires crunching on the icy road, and rolled down the window slightly. "Are you okay?" she called out. The man stepped closer, his face pale and gaunt, snowflakes clinging to his dark hair. "Car broke down a few miles back," he said, his voice hoarse. "Can you give me a ride?" Claire hesitated again but unlocked the passenger door. "Get in, quick, before you freeze." The man climbed in, shaking snow off his duffel bag as he settled into the seat. The car filled with the sharp, metallic scent of the cold. Claire glanced at him as she started driving again. He looked exhausted, his fingers red and raw from the cold. "Thank you," he said, his voice soft but distant. "Not many people would stop." "It's dangerous out there," Claire replied, forcing a nervous laugh. "What happened to your car?" "Ran out of gas," he said flatly. "Didn't realize how far the next station was." They drove in silence for a few minutes. The man's gaze felt heavy, like he was studying her. Claire tried to ignore it, focusing on the road ahead. The snow seemed to fall harder, blanketing the windshield despite the wiper's frantic efforts. "Where are you headed?" she asked, breaking the silence. "Anywhere warm," he replied with a faint smile. "What about you?" "Just heading home. Long drive from my sister's place." The man nodded, but said nothing more. Claire noticed his duffel bag on the floor. It had a dark stain near the zipper. She tried not to stare, but couldn't shake the uneasy feeling creeping up her spine. The radio suddenly crackled to life, cutting through the tension. A news report came on, barely audible through the static. Police are searching for a suspect in connection with multiple murders in the area. The man is believed to be armed and dangerous. Witnesses describe him as... Claire's stomach dropped. She reached for the dial, pretending to adjust the volume, but the man's hand darted out, turning the radio off completely. "Hate the news," he said, his voice calm but firm. "Nothing but fear-mongering." Claire forced a smile, her palms slick with sweat despite the cold. She tightened her grip on the wheel. "You're right, always so negative," she murmured. The man leaned back in his seat, his eyes fixed on her. "You're a good person, stopping for me. Most wouldn't." Claire's throat felt dry. Her mind raced, replaying the news report. She couldn't be sure, but the description, it fit him. The pale skin, the thin jacket, the duffel bag. Her pulse thundered in her ears as she stole a glance at the bag again. Was that blood? "I need to use the restroom," she blurted out. "There's a gas station up ahead. I'll pull over." The man's lips curved into a slow smile. "No need. Keep driving. We're almost there." Her stomach churned. "Almost where?" "You'll see," he said, his tone unnervingly calm. Panic set in. She glanced at the phone on the seat again. Still no signal. Her eyes darted to the road, searching for any sign of civilization. Nothing but endless snow and darkness. "You know," he said, breaking the silence, "it's funny. People think they're safe in their cars, warm, locked away from the cold. But out here?" He chuckled softly. "Out here, it doesn't matter. The cold always gets in." Claire's hands trembled. She forced herself to focus. I think there's a diner a few miles ahead. You can call for help there." He leaned forward slightly, his breath fogging the glass. I don't need help. Do you? Her heart pounded as she saw a flicker of light in the distance. A sign. A building. Anything. She pressed the accelerator, the car skidding slightly on the icy road. "Slow down," he said, his voice sharp. She didn't listen. As they neared the light, she realized it was an abandoned gas station. The windows were boarded up, the pumps rusted over, but she had no choice. She slammed the brakes, the car screeching to a halt. Before the man could react, she grabbed her phone and bolted out of the car, her boots sinking into the snow. The cold bit at her skin as she ran toward the station, her breath coming in frantic gasps. Behind her, she heard the car door open. Footsteps crunched in the snow. "Claire," his voice called, low and chilling. "You're making this harder than it needs to be." She reached the station and yanked on the door, locked. Desperation clawed at her as she scrambled around the building, searching for another way in. A shattered window loomed ahead. Without thinking, she climbed through, slicing her hand on the broken glass. Inside, the air was bitterly cold, the walls lined with peeling posters and dust. She crouched behind a counter, clutching her bleeding hand, and listened. The crunching footsteps grew louder, then stopped. "You can't hide forever," he said, his voice echoing through the empty station. "The cold always finds you." Claire's eyes darted around, searching for anything she could use. Her fingers brushed against a rusted wrench. She gripped it tightly, her breath shallow. The footsteps resumed. Closer now. "You should have just kept driving," he whispered, his voice just beyond the counter. Claire sprang up, swinging the wrench with all her strength. It connected with a sickening crack, and the man staggered back, blood streaming from his temple. She didn't wait to see if he'd get up. She bolted out of the station and back to the car. Her hands fumbled with the keys as she started the engine. The headlights illuminated the snow, but the road ahead was empty. She floored the gas, her heart hammering in her chest. As she drove, she glanced in the rearview mirror. The man stood in the road, his face pale, his eyes locked on hers. A chilling smile spread across his lips as he raised his hand in a mock wave. Then he vanished into the storm. Claire didn't stop until she reached the next town, her mind replaying his parting words. "The cold always finds you." As the storm swallows the highway behind Claire, her desperate breaths linger in the air, and her pounding heart echoes in her ears. The man's haunting words, "The cold always finds you," stick with her, chilling her more deeply than the winter air. And with that, the tale comes to a close. But the chill doesn't have to end here. If you enjoyed this story and want to hear more spine-tingling tales like it, please give this video a thumbs up, leave a comment sharing your thoughts, and hit that subscribe button. Join me here on Spooking Chilling Tales as we uncover the eerie, the unexplained, and the downright terrifying. New stories drop every week, so don't miss out, because who knows what's lurking in the dark, waiting to be told. Thank you for listening. Until next time, stay warm and stay safe.